The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yes. Good morning, you guys. It is Tuesday, July 8th. And today is National Raspberry Day. Nothing to say, huh? Nothing. No one cares about the raspberries, huh?
Wait, hello, Jason.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You might have been muted. You might have been muted.
How am I muted?
I do not know, but you might have. Did you guys hear him?
Oh, we hear him now, though.
No, okay.
You hear me now?
I think it fixed it.
You hear me now?
I think it fixed it.
Okay,
we're all good.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, July 8th, and today is National Raspberry Day.
Oh, congratulations to the raspberry.
Yeah, everyone loves raspberries. You know what I'm saying? Especially...
That's just one of those raspberries where you go...
Well...
And then a raspberry, too.
I mean, well, you know, there's also, you know, Todd, in your favorite world of espionage, there's also the Raspberry Pi.
Ah, that's true.
Yes.
My favorite world of espionage.
Yeah, why not? You know what I mean?
Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Also a board, you know, a circuit board, a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anything to say, Jenny Beth, about raspberries? Surprised no one brought up Prince with a raspberry beret.
That's a good one.
You know, just saying, guys, just saying, you know.
R.I.P. Prince.
It's also Cow Appreciation Day.
Cow? Like California?
No, cow, like
moo cow?
I'm not sure if it's for moo cows or just like, you know, overweight people or, you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure.
Got it.
Yeah, it could be any of those are I think a healthy possibility, Todd.
Yes. Be a celebration of methane gas also.
Hey man, I'm all for the methane gas, you know what I'm saying? Drill baby drill all day every day. It's also
Yep.
You know, it's summertime, Todd, because it's National Freezer Pop Day.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I had a freezer pop.
I think Otter Pops probably had the best branding out of all of them.
I remember Bomb Pops that I loved.
Remember
the red,
Bomb
white,
Pops?
and blue ones.
Jenny Beth, are you with us today? Are you present?
Yeah, Jason. Come on.
Welcome back. Welcome back, Jenny. We're glad you made it back today.
So angry.
Yeah, she sounds angry. She does. Well, maybe this will make you happy, Jenny. It's National Chocolate with Almonds Day.
Oh, beautiful.
Shout out to Hershey's.
I'd love a Hershey's chocolate bar with almonds.
You know, I've never understood why they promote the chocolate with almonds. I've always thought the ones without almonds were way better, but you know, I guess there's lots of nuts out there, Todd.
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are kicking it off this morning with Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3, and she is back today after her holiday vacay. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
And the crowd goes wild.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Santa Barbara County judges refused to certify a class action suit filed by Pence Vineyards and Quantum Wines against neighboring West Coast Farms, a 50-acre outdoor cannabis operation in Buellton. The vintners alleged strong cannabis odors from West Coast drove away tasting room customers, reporting a drop in visits from 7,600 in 2021 to 3,300 in 2024, and devalued their property. They sought to include neighbors within a 2-mile radius in the lawsuit. West Coast Farms counters that any scent was mild, floral, and localized to harvest periods. The air quality test detected only faint odor levels. A perfumed misting system was even installed to neutralize any smells, though plaintiffs objected to resulting chemical sprays landing on their vineyards. With class certification now off the table, plaintiffs must either pursue individual claims or drop the suit, an outcome with broad implications for cannabis-adjacent businesses facing odor complaints. So, once again, Santa Barbara County did a shitty job of planning and whatever. And so now everybody's complaining that it smells like weed. No shit, it smells like weed. Santa Barbara County is not complaining about all these weed taxes they're collecting, however. So I don't really buy the argument that the misting system with perfume in it to try to disguise the smell is contaminating their grapes. I don't really buy that that's why they've had a drop in visitors to their tasting rooms. But I do appreciate the fact this judge didn't allow them to slap it into a class action suit and include all the neighbors in a 2-mile radius. I'll throw it back to you guys. This is stupid.
But this,
I would agree.
This is a win, though, right, Jenny? This is a win overall for cannabis, because they're basically saying, hey, you can't use the smell of cannabis to say that it's harming your business.
That's not what they're saying at all, Jason. What they're saying is we're not going to let you roll this into a class action suit.
Yep.
Can you elaborate, please, Michael, for me, being the attorney?
Jason, it's one plaintiff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One plaintiff. When one plaintiff sues one defendant,
mm-hmm.
and then one plaintiff says, wait, there's other people here in this 2-mile radius, let me bring them in, that becomes a class action suit.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
One-on-one.
I'm up to speed now. Thank you, Jenny.
Sorry, Michael, I didn't want to jump into your specialty, but that seemed like an easy enough one. I figured I could.
That's fine. Hit it out of the park, lady.
At 9 News, Law 101.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We're all about, law and order over here. I'm not. This. I knew you would like that one, Todd. I knew you would like that one. Oh man. I feel like if I was a cannabis operator over there, I would file a similar lawsuit against one of these farms for the smell of manure. And see what they had to say, and just follow, basically just copy and paste the whole lawsuit, and throw it out there and see what people have to say. Because I'm willing to bet that people are more offended by the smell of fertilizer than the smell of cannabis.
I definitely am.
Yeah, the difference is right to farm versus not right to farm, and so certain agricultural activities, for lack of a more nuanced explanation, have sort of a protected class category, and cannabis doesn't. Cannabis is not treated as any other agricultural product. A pig farm is far more obnoxious and disgusting than the odor that comes off of a cannabis farm, but the pig farmer is treated with more protections based on their zoning as of right, it being a farming and an agricultural activity. And so when cannabis in California is treated like any other agricultural product, it'll be a better day. There'll be less uncertainty, less lawsuits. And the fact that this person, this judge, didn't allow for the class action lawsuit just means it's not a litigation gangbang. Pardon my disgusting analogy on a Tuesday morning. It doesn't mean that it's not going to continue to go forward. It doesn't mean that this cannabis farm isn't paying legal fees or their insurance isn't going up as a result of the litigation. It just means that it doesn't get to be an exponential clusterfuck. And it doesn't mean that the person who's suing still might not prevail. I mean, wineries tend to be pretty heavily resourced operations. It's challenging because we're seeing a lot of contraction in the wine industry and the vineyard industry across California anyway. So this person's going to come in with damages and show that there's been economic loss. That economic loss as a winery or as a brand could be for a variety of other reasons. There's a lot of bankrupt wineries being traded in the North Coast region right now. And either way, even if this cannabis operation prevails, they still had to spend a lot of time and a lot of money. I don't know that they get their legal fees recaptured even in a best case scenarios. So it's a win, but it's not a great win. And I believe that there's already been a lot of studies about like terpene drift and can you have the effects of nearby cannabis affect, the taste of grapes. And that's, I think maybe there was one case in Oregon or something like that. But like even without that, it's a challenge because I want people to go to tasting rooms and taste as much wine in California as they possibly can and just not drive afterwards. And how do these agricultural activities coexist? In Sonoma County, for example, I want people to be able to come here and drink the local wines and smoke the local cannabis and be able to have businesses that support both of those activities. When in Rome, I mean, hello. And so these kinds of lawsuits are going to have, I think, a stifling effect on the premature evolution of consumption lounges, at least in California, from a regulatory perspective. So sad story.
Interesting.
I think terpene drift is a serving suggestion, not a problem.
You know what? Terpene drift is a real thing, though, Todd. I've grown a few different plants in the same room, and I've noticed that whatever is the stronger terpene profile does pull off onto other varietals that aren't as robust, I would say.
That means that there's terpene drift on eucalyptus and lemons and every other plant in the plant.
Evergreen trees.
I think that's a fair statement, Todd.
So how can they blame it on the cannabis?
Well, because cannabis is the stepchild and is always the.
Oh, that's true. That's a really good point.
for the blame. You know what I mean? That's just what it is.
My question is, do they have witness statements and things like that making complaints about it?
Say that again, Michael.
If they have witness statements and things of that nature that justify and support their claim and say, hey, we don't want to be here because of X, Y, and Z, because of the odor of cannabis and stuff. I think they would have to have something like that in order to, support their case.
But even if they did, as long as you have a permit and you're operating within the confines of your permit, like witnesses or not, like there's a whiner on every block. I mean, you can find a complainer in California about anything.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't necessarily mean that should be allowed to go forward. I mean, I would have loved if the judge had done a summary judgment, struck the case down, and not just nixed a class action.
Well, yeah, typically, and just to be clear, so when a class action is, you usually have to certify the class before you go forward with the lawsuit. So it is, and if it was a motion to dismiss, in all likelihood, they're before the summary judgment issue. So that could still possibly happen, absolutely.
This winery owner has no class.
Clearly.
Are you going to boycott him?
Even though he drinks with his pinky up.
Am I going to boycott him? There are so many amazing wineries in California and beyond that I am not beholden to enjoy their grapes at all. And I don't even know. I might boycott the whole AVA.
Interesting.
That'll show him.
That'll show him.
That's right. I mean, he's a big wine drinker, so there's definitely going to hit their pockets.
I thought you said I'm a small elf on a shelf.
You are a small elf on a shelf. You just happen to, be a big drinker.
You're a big whiner.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that makes you a
whiner, wino, all the same things.
Only when I have to hear this right-wing drivel.
Oh, stop
That's
it.
True.
Stop it.
That's
Stop
a good
it.
point.
You guys are so funny. Well, on that, we're going to roll into our first commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Mm-hmm.
We be puffing trees.
We'd be puffing trees. That's
Like
what
that.
we'd be doing. That's
Whatever it takes to
you know?
not just be seen as another.
Suddenly you get ghetto.
Dad.
Oh man, you guys
Also,
are
we're
fun.
back.
Yeah, we've been back, you guys. We've been back. Well, I'm gonna roll into my first story of the day, you guys. And Yarrow, this is a follow-up, Yarrow, from your story yesterday. This is basically what happened in court yesterday. Are you ready for this?
I mean, if you need to ride my news reporting coattails, I guess I am.
All right, fair enough. Because there was a rogue cop on trial for extorting marijuana from drivers. That's right. Federal prosecutors accuse a former police officer of posing as a federal agent and selling the marijuana he extracted from drivers during off-hours traffic stops. They say, if there's money in growing cannabis, there's also money in taking people's cannabis. Well, duh. A 14-person jury heard opening statements on Monday, that was yesterday, in the trial of Joseph Huffaker. That's a great last name for someone that's taken weed. Huffaker. A former Rohnert Park, California policeman indicted in 2021 on charges of impersonating federal agents to extort cash and cannabis from motorists along Highway 101. And they quote, "This is a case about a corruption of the batch. This is a case about Huffaker using his position for personal gain," Abraham Fine of the United States Attorney's Office told the jury. Huffaker is accused of seizing large quantities of weed in his spare time without making arrests and reporting crimes or issuing receipts for the confiscated goods and then selling his ill-gotten seizures on the black market from at least August of 2016 to December of 2017. That's not that long. In the courtroom, the prosecution further characterized Huffaker as a rogue cop who began masquerading as a member of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives after his local drug enforcement team was shut down following the 2016 adult use legalization in California. In a quote, "What they were doing was not consistent with legitimate police work," Fine said. And the defense decided to make opening statements at this time, indicating through the judge that it may later at the close of the government's case. However, Huffaker did try to shift the blame to his supposed co-conspirator, former Rohnert Park officer J.C. Tatum, during witness testimony portraying him as the real driving force behind the scheme. Tatum took to the stand on the first day of trial, testifying that he and Huffaker had a close professional and personal relationship, although the day ended before he could testify to much more. Tatum previously pleaded guilty to charges of extorting marijuana and obstructing justice back in 2021 in exchange for cooperating with federal investigators. Tatum also faces charges of preparing a false police report and press release for a traffic stop on December 5th of 2017 to conceal his criminal activity after the press began reporting about it in February of 2018. In a quote, "No doubt Tatum is guilty of a lot of crimes, but this case is about what the defendant has done," Fine said, "and the evidence will show that Huffaker committed a lot of those crimes too," they say.
If convicted, Huffaker could serve up to 20 years in prison for various charges, including conspiracy to commit extortion. And the jury also heard from multiple witnesses in the case, including Huffaker's former police chief, one of his supposed victims, and California Highway Patrol officers who saw Huffaker and Tatum pulling over their supposed victims. I guess they were doing drive-bys. But before they were the center of a federal investigation, former police officer Tatum and Huffaker worked on a drug task force in Rohnert Park, a small city about an hour north of San Francisco, mostly stopping vehicles along a 40-mile stretch of Highway 101 in Sonoma County. And during his time leading the drug-busting team, Tatum won awards and reportedly seized over 4,000 pounds of marijuana, 20 firearms, a dozen vehicles, and over $4 million in cash. Brian Masterson, former police chief of the Rohnert Park Department of Public Safety, testified that his department had to buy multiple odor shipping containers just to store the cannabis they seized, partially because the smell started to waft through the 3 floors of the station. But the drug eradication program dried up in 2016 with the passage of Proposition 64 in California, which legalized adult use cannabis. And by January of 2017, the program was disbanded completely. In a quote, "I think both Sergeant Tatum and Officer Huffaker were a bit disappointed," Brian Masterson, former police chief of the Rohnert Park Police Public Safety, told the jury on Monday. After Masterson disbanded the drug-busting team, he said Tatum and Huffaker visited him to see if he would reconsider his decision or perhaps be open to a federal partnership of some kind to continue the enforcement. In a quote, "I told them absolutely not," Masterson said, adding it was pretty clear the voters approved the legalization of marijuana. And prosecutors say Huffaker and Tatum would threaten to arrest drivers or seize more of their assets if they did not agree to let them take their cash, pot, or other property. During these traffic stops, Tatum and Huffaker would reportedly drive far north outside their usual jurisdiction to the Hopland Cloverdale area in an unmarked vehicle, dressed in generic police tactical gear without badges or other markings. And in court, Tatum testified that although he mostly worked his scheme solo from 2015 to 2016, he later added Huffaker into the fold from 2017 onward. In December of 2017, the pair pulled over Baron Lutz, the owner of an upstart marijuana company called Humboldt Private Reserve, using an unmarked black SUV equipped with police lights. Lutz was carrying over 20 pounds of marijuana flower and 4 mason jars worth of hash concentrate, worth over $20,000 in total. Lutz testified on Monday that he was taking the material down to the Bay Area for lab testing as required by state law for his business when the pair pulled him over, dressed in tactical vests and t-shirts. He said he eventually showed the off-duty officers his cargo, and they gave him the ultimatum. They could confiscate the flower alone and let him go, or they could take him to the station. And in a quote, "I don't know if I was being robbed or arrested. I felt confused," Lutz told the jury. But Lutz said something still felt strange, and he asked them for some documentation of the cannabis they seized. His question was rebuffed with a vague threat. In a quote, "They asked me if I wanted to make a large federal case of it or if I'd prefer to be let go," Lutz recalled. "I'd say I'd prefer to be let go." Attorneys for both sides declined a request for comment, and the trial is currently scheduled to last through July 18th of 2025. And Huffaker worked for the Rohnert Park Police Department safety from 2012 to 2019, and so far, settlements over the claimed extortion scheme have cost the city nearly $1.9 million in total, you guys. And this case was filed in the Northern District of California and heard by Philip Barton Federal Courthouse in San Francisco, California, and U.S. District Judge Maxine M. Chesney, a Bill Clinton appointee, presided over the case. Man, oh man, Yarrow. These guys extorting people, they had a fun day in court, it sounds like. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I'm gonna jump in because I got like fire ants in my commentary pants, and here's the deal. Here's the deal. There was a program called Black Asphalt. Okay, Black Asphalt was developed by a company called Desert Snow. And there are articles that you can Google if you just type in Black Asphalt enforcement technique that go back as far as 2013, 2014. And Black Asphalt is used by police officers as a possibly illegal aid in seizing drugs and cash during roadside stops. The site was created by a counterterrorism firm called Desert Snow and has been tapped by as many as 25,000 police officers. It gives you this predictive analytics called Be on the Lookout, or BOLO reports, which often target drivers based on only a cop's hunch. It gives them access to things like social security numbers and things that are not related to any criminal or vehicular convictions. Desert Snow training methods reportedly allowed the Department of Justice to seize over $427 million in 5 years, drastically increasing the take in the Justice Department's contentious asset forfeiture fund. Rohnert Park had access to this. The bigger story here is when these cops came back to this Brian Monahan police chief, who subsequently retired quickly as a result of this controversy, they came back to ask him to continue the program. It wasn't like these two rogue cops were like, hey, boss, can we keep kicking in heads? This was a revenue-producing activity from the top down, with programs designed to allow for cops to predictively pull over those vehicles that they thought were most likely going to have a positive revenue-producing effect with asset forfeiture. J.C. Tatum had production numbers that were in excess of anything that would have been capable of being achieved with a small Rohnert Park Police Department, but for these tools and coloring outside the lines. And here we have yet another article talking about these rogue cops. These were not rogue cops. In fact, one of the guys who got pulled over and started reporting these guys was a former law enforcement employee named Zeke Flatten. Zeke Flatten was pulled over by 3 people. The third officer has never been identified. He was from a different department, never made his way into the FBI's investigation. And when they talked about these cargo containers that Rohnert Park had to get in order to store all the weed, this is not 2 rogue cops. 2 rogue cops don't get Carnox containers for their law enforcement department to store all the extra weed. This was a systematized top-down approach to creating revenue by acting as state-sanctioned pirates against the medical cannabis industry in Northern California. And the idea that only these 2 guys was involved is the biggest insult on the intelligence of the American public this week.
Interesting. The biggest.
No, I don't think it's the biggest. No.
And that's saying something given our president.
I think the no Epstein list is the biggest.
Well, we're talking about $500 million in seized money as a result of this program, and that was in 2013 and 14. So if we look at the total money seized across the country through the use of this likely illegal and unconstitutional asset forfeiture program that basically tried to be like Minority Report and predict crimes before they were committed so that cops without probable cause could pull over motorists, I would say, as much as I am completely sympathetic to the victims of the Epstein and Friends controversy, that $500 million being taken from the American public as a result often of no criminal conviction is the bigger story.
This also happened in Miami, like in the 90s and early 2000s. Miami Police Department actually built up their budget with asset forfeiture. Asset forfeiture. What did I say backwards?
Yeah.
Forfeit asset. Asset forfeiture, right?
We got you,
all
Todd.
the cars and houses and all the things that they took from major coke dealers down in Miami was huge, and it literally funded, their efforts. In fact, to make a really long story really short, I used to shoot music videos and stuff like that, and I shot a video one time at Vanilla Ice's house in Golden, or not on Golden Beach, but on South Beach. And he said he bought his house. It was a $4 million house on Star Island, and he bought it for 1.6 from the police department because they seized it. And that's how he got such a great deal, because he bought it right from the police department.
Out of here.
Yeah, those happen a lot. And, there was an article about Sunrise Police Department years ago. They were basically doing 2-for-1 deals on kilos of cocaine. They had some beautiful women out there finding Johns. Yeah. And they were, enticing them to then come to the city of Sunrise, Florida specifically, and then they were seizing their vehicles and their cash, $50,000 or so at a whack. They're making $200,000 a year just as the CIs that were working on this case with the cops. So this is something that goes on regularly throughout the country. I think it's a big reason why they are fighting so hard and waiting so long to reschedule and decriminalize marijuana, because they know that it's their cash cow, man. It's the easiest way they get into a car. It's the easiest way that they search. And if that's gone, they don't know where to get all their fun stuff, their free vacations, their perk money. It's sad, and it is a huge problem within our police system, I think. And with that, I've had like 2 cases in 23 years where in reality, the amount of money my client said is actually the amount of money that the cop put into inventory. So, who's right, who's wrong, who knows? But now that there's body cameras, it's a little bit easily more trackable. But, I've been hearing that for 23 years. I had way more money than that.
There's a reason why the majority of police unions across the country were thoroughly opposed to body cameras to begin with. I mean, we've got this ridiculous bootlicking mindset that behind the thin blue line, the majority of people are just good people trying to save old ladies and cats from house fires. And we need to start being a little bit more honest in this country about what happens behind that thin blue line, the lack of accountability, the lack of citizen oversight. We've got a major issue in this country. People don't trust law enforcement to really have their community's interests at heart. And we've saw that bubble over. We've seen violence. We've seen riots. We've seen protests. We've seen racial divide. And a lot of that comes from the fact that law enforcement is not accountable beyond its union and beyond its funding sources in a variety of departments. Does it mean that we should have no cops? No. Does it mean all cops are bad? No. But we've got to get rid of this idea that it's just a few rotten apples, this ridiculous talking point that we hear time and time and time again. And here you've got a program, an income-producing program that fits squarely with the allegation of a prison industrial complex, where we can see that asset forfeiture is a revenue-producing activity for these departments, not about keeping city streets safe. And we're doing nothing but reporting on the 2 cops who got their hand caught in the cookie jar. But they were not rogue. They were part of an apparatus that was designed to do exactly what they did. And now we're nibbling around the edges of what I believe to be a much bigger systemic issue, and not just in Rohnert Park. Let's stop the bullshit. Let's not think for 1 second that Rohnert Park was the rogue city and that these 2 guys were the 2 rogue cops. That's just crazy. That stretches credibility.
Yeah, you're right, because there's been plenty of allegations that I've heard that Oakland PD was involved with a lot of the different distro robberies that plagued Oakland for a while. And I agree with you, Yarrow, as far as the sentiment within the community feels against law enforcement, and I don't think that just stops at local law enforcement. That goes all the way up as far as public trust overall within the Justice Department, the FBI, and all of these other different governmental organizations that operate within the Justice Department, and that's because they have been lying to us for years upon years about all of these different things, and just gaslighting here and gaslighting there, that their public trust has really eroded over time.
And we saw that with the right assailing the FBI when there was the investigation of Trump. But we need to take a step back, I think, from the partisan perspective and go, like, for example, why is the DEA even have a voice in a rescheduling conversation about future policy when the DEA is a part of this apparatus that has been a revenue-producing activity that fuels constituents?
Yeah, they have a conflict of interest.
Having a conversation about rescheduling with scientists and patients.
Yeah, I agree with you. They have a conflict of interest there.
Professionals.
Yeah,
you're talking crazy.
And I wouldn't even call it a conflict of interest. I call it they have a vested interest.
There wasn't one woman in the discussion for abortion rights either, so
we're not going into all that one today, Todd.
Just saying, it's the same.
It's not even close to the same thing. You guys are talking about murdering people, okay? And we're talking about corrupt law enforcement. Totally different things. Not even close to the same topic.
All I'm saying.
Not even close to the same.
Yarrow's saying professionals and scientists need to be involved in this discussion.
Not even close to the same thing, Todd, but that was a nice try.
Exactly the same thing.
Not even close. But we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Michael Minardi. He's coming out of the great red state of Florida and has been helping patients, caregivers stay crime-free for over 20 years. That's right. And you can find him in his law office at the Minardi Law Firm in the great red state of Florida. It is none other than Mr. Michael Minardi.
Hello, everyone, and happy high noon on the East Coast. We got a very interesting article today, I think, that continues to be one of the biggest questions that we get in our law firm. So this is about a federal judge rejects Pennsylvania prosecutor's lawsuit challenging ban on marijuana consumer gun ownership. This was published by Ben Aldlin. A federal judge in Pennsylvania has dismissed a lawsuit challenging the federal government's ban on gun ownership by state legal medical marijuana patients. The judge ruled that the prohibition is constitutional and that patients can avoid legal jeopardy by choosing alternate treatments. Plaintiffs have no constitutional right to use marijuana, medical or otherwise, and there are no allegations that medical marijuana is the only available treatment for their medical conditions. U.S. District Judge Kathy Bison, an Obama appointee, wrote in a decision this week. The suit was filed in January of last year by Warren County District Attorney Robert Green, who is a registered medical cannabis patient in the state and with the Second Amendment Foundation, which advocates for gun rights. Cheers to the district attorney who's a medical marijuana patient and willing to talk about it. Americans consider marijuana safer than alcohol and cigarettes. At the heart of the case is the federal statute known as Section 922G3, which prevents someone who is an unlawful user of an legal drug from buying or possessing firearms. The Department of Justice filed a motion to dismiss last November, arguing that the suit fails as a matter of law by challenging a constitutional statute. Green's participation was especially notable. The complaint said the county prosecutor had intended to lawfully purchase, possess, and utilize firearms and ammunition so that he may exercise his constitutional right to keep and bear arms for self-defense and all other lawful purposes, but was barred for doing so because of his medical marijuana patient status. Another patient, Bloomberg, resident in Second.
Did he freeze? Does internet freeze? Michael, I think your internet froze on us, buddy.
Constitutional.
Oh, there he is. There he's back.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, buddy.
Plaintiffs are alleging that prohibition on gun ownership by cannabis users was unconstitutional, both on its face and as applied to plaintiffs. Attorneys argue that federal law is distinct from other statutes that limit gun ownership by potentially dangerous individuals, pointing out that the restrictions only permitted the deprivation of Second Amendment rights after a hearing providing due process, and then only temporarily. The key points are that the judge declared that there was no constitutional right to marijuana, that because they had alternative treatments that they didn't need to use marijuana, that it was federally unlawful behavior, and that they could choose to refrain from it and still have their Second Amendment rights. The ruling acknowledges that modern Second Amendment jurisprudence is rapidly evolving, but this decision reflects the current legal landscape in the Third Circuit, which includes Pennsylvania. The judge maintained that the law is sufficiently similar to other historical limits on the Second Amendment, such as preventing firearm possession by intoxicated people and individuals with mental illnesses. After careful court consideration, the court agreed that Section 922G3 and D3 are relevantly similar to historical regulations and are constitutionally legal, allowing the limitation and legal possession of mentally ill and the intoxicated. The finding is consistent with the overwhelming weight of authority upholding the facial constitutionality of these sections and related regulations. They did dismiss it with prejudice, so I'm sure that this prosecutor will end up in appealing. Despite that ruling, courts in recent years have been divided on whether the federal government's ban on gun ownership by cannabis users is lawful, especially when broadly applied. Some courts have argued that blanket ban infringes on Second Amendment rights, while others have upheld its constitutionality. U.S. v. Hermani found that the federal statute bars possession of firearms temporary and leaves within the power to lift the restriction, so it was constitutional. U.S. v. Cooper appeals panel dismissed a 3-year prison sentence against a person convicted for possession of a firearm. U.S. Baxter also found that it was unconstitutional. A Rhode Island case also found it was unconstitutional as applied to 2 defendants. Fifth Circuit also ruled that it was unconstitutional applied to at least 1 defendant. And an El Paso case also late last year ruled that the government's ongoing ban of gun ownership by habitual marijuana is unconstitutional in a case of a defendant who earlier pled guilty of criminal charge. The court allowed the man to withdraw the plea in order that the indictment against him be dismissed. This issue is also pending in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals currently, and the article does mention that there are other cases that are potentially going to be and being challenged or requesting the U.S. Supreme Court to review to determine this issue for the country. As we know, this case was also a part of the Hunter Biden issue a couple years ago that ended up getting resolved, I think, by pardon. So that this issue regarding drug use and cannabis use is something that I think that's going to continue to evolve on a state-by-state level. Some states like Colorado have added protections for gun use. Other states have specifically prevented it. This is a very important, I think, issue because it continues to create discrimination in the cannabis industry, as this is the only real drug that you're automatically kind of excluded from. Like with other opiates and prescription medications, you're not. And this goes back to descheduling. I think that once this is rescheduled, descheduled, that this issue will hopefully be resolved as well. But, gun ownership is important in this country. It's a big issue that we get for veterans who want to be medical marijuana patients, who want to keep their weapons. And it's something that everyone should have a right to. What do you guys think?
That's a real quagmire for Republicans because they love guns and hate pot.
Oh, easy there. That's not true for all of them. That's not true for all of them.
That's platform.
Stop it.
Oh, I mean, where is that wrong?
That's not. It's not their platform to hate pot. That's not true.
I mean, it's a cliche and it's a broad stroke, but I don't think he's incorrect.
Oh, of course you wouldn't, Yarrow. I didn't expect anything less. Yeah. I mean, Yarrow's a closet Republican. It's okay.
I know when we did our polling here over in Hillsborough, we were probably about 43 to 45% of the Republicans would approve or were in support of with our poll that we got back. So it wasn't as bad as I thought, honestly.
See?
And we know in Florida, at least for medical marijuana, we had a significant portion of Republicans vote yes on it. For legalization, it didn't go as well, but hopefully minds will continue to change.
Exactly. It's an evolving process. You know what I mean? And it doesn't help when you have the the crazy train that is the only advocates that are in the room that are voicing opinion. You need to have sensible minds that are in there voicing opinions and not just not just the crazy farm out there.
And they won't even take gun rights away from domestic abusers, right?
I don't have a problem.
They won't give it to guys who smoke pot.
That's false. Yes, they do take them away. That's actually a portion of the domestic violence charge provisions. Yes, they absolutely do. In fact, when you're charged with a domestic violence charge, your gun rights are immediately taken. That's one of the questions. Do you have any weapons? They are taken immediately.
So that was appealed recently to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court did last year, I believe it was last year, uphold the removal of gun rights from people that were domestic violence.
There we go.
But that was challenged. It did go to the U.S. Supreme Court. So
I thought, yeah.
Well, look at that. It was challenged and it was upheld, Todd. Look at that.
Hey, how about that?
Look at that.
I stand corrected.
Look at that. Look at that.
I mean, in that case, the guy did, I think, threaten the woman with a gun. So.
Yeah. People need to chill out with all the gun violence. As far as I'm concerned, I'm very, very pro A, and I think it's more for protection and more of a deterrent to have people act right, as opposed to it just needs to be there for shoot 'em up, bang bang purposes.
I guess violence is the number one cause of children's death in America.
Well, that's because all these kids and taking all these mind meds got them all whacked out, Todd. That ain't got nothing to do with guns. That has more to do with the psychotropic meds that are being pumped down all these kids every day.
It has to
but
do
they
with
don't take
easy
those
access to
psychotropic
guns.
meds and choke people
That's
with
right.
little pills at the school. They usually bring an assault
Those
weapon
psychotropic
to the
meds
school.
make them act out
That
in the
is
way that
correct.
they do. With you can't blame. That's like blaming tennis shoes for making you run faster. Come on, Yarrow, that's ridiculous.
Jason, I've looked at your physique. I don't think your tennis shoes are making you run faster.
Oh, bro, I'm a sprinter, bro. Sprinter. All right.
Yeah, Mercedes sprinter.
Oh man, Jenny Beth, you have any other comments you want to say on this gun debacle? Okay. All right, fair enough. Thank you so much for that, Michael. We appreciate that. The whole gun thing is a serious thing, and me personally, I'm very pro 2A, all the way, all day, every day. But at the same time, I think that we need to have mental health wellness. Like I don't think people that are mentally unstable should necessarily have guns. But
You mean like a background check?
I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily call it a background check.
You take a test when you're buying a gun to see if you're nuts.
No. I consider a wellness check. Like if you are on any of these psychotropic drugs, I think that should be that should be a disqualifier, or at least you do need a sign off from a doctor stating
You
that
think
you're.
there should be a national registry if you're on some kind of psychotropic drug?
Yep, I do.
It has to present it to the gun store.
Yep.
Says, and now it's up to them to determine whether.
I would be in all
not.
favor of that. Yep. If anyone that's taking psychotropic drugs, yes, I'm all in favor for that, all the way.
At a minimum, I think it should be a question, like it is for "Are you an unlawful user of drugs?" on the form. I mean, we have the red flag laws here in the state, but I think that those are issues because I agree. I'm a 2A supporter, and I think it's it's people that kill people.
Exactly.
Not the gun.
Exactly right.
Yes, they can use the guns, but
It's literally a tool to kill people.
Well, I mean, well, fishermen use fishing poles to kill fish, Todd.
They do.
It's the same thing.
They do. No, it is the same thing. But we eat fish. We don't eat
300-round fishing pole.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a matter.
It's called
of,
power bait, Yarrow.
Your analogy is awesome. Oh, it's just like fishermen.
It is.
We're out there in order.
It is.
To kill
It's
fish.
a tool. You can't blame the tool. You can't blame the tool. You have to blame the person, the individual. You don't blame the tool.
It is a tool.
Yeah,
It is a killing tool they use to kill fish.
No,
they can eat them or sell them or whatever they do with
blame
them.
the symptom, and you don't get to the cause.
Exactly.
It's like killing a gunshot
Access.
wound is the cause.
Access is the cause.
that's the bottom
Easy
line.
access.
No, it's not. That is
Access.
not. We need more gun access, as far as I'm concerned. But on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back. Oh, yes, and we are back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And make sure that you go into the description in this video and check out all the sponsors that help make this possible. Make sure that you use the link to order yourself a case of Liberal Tears today directly to your door. Patriot Peach, 150 milligrams of caffeine in every can. And also, too, we want to give our thoughts and prayers with all the victims of the flood victims out there in the great state of Texas. Aim High Hemp Distribution, one of our sponsors here, is doing a drive for goods. And so if people want to donate funds, blankets, water, anything else like that, please make sure that you go in and hit them up on their website at aimhighhempdistribution.com. The link for their website is in the description of this video. And so please help out, make a difference, and let them know that the community cares about them. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated. Yes, and we are back. Jenny, you got Todd today?
Yeah.
All right.
The golden liberal voice, the bald head from Las Vegas, Nevada, founder of DigiPath Labs, and the Smuggleverse, Todd Denkin.
Oh,
And
yes.
the crowd goes wild. The enthusiastic introduction just brings tingles to my body.
Yes.
Thank you for those very, very kind words.
Yeah.
My story is about Jason's very good friend as the retired congressman who championed marijuana reform. And of course, Jason Beck's good friend is deeply concerned about a lack of progress under the Trump administration. That's right. Former Representative Earl Blumenauer, a Democrat from Oregon, says he's, quote, more than a little concerned, unquote, about the lack of progress on marijuana reform under the Trump administration since he retired from Congress last session. Part of that worry emanates from a sense that bipartisanship cooperation he helped build around the issue on Capitol Hill seems to have waned. After decades of work advancing cannabis policy changes at the state and federal levels, Blumenauer tells Marijuana Moment that he's not especially encouraged by what he has seen since departing Congress. He grants that the seeming lack of progress over recent months is partially attributable to the, quote, totally crazy times, unquote, in general lawmakers have found themselves in this session. A congressman who served as a founding co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus said, I am deeply concerned with continued work on legalization and our progress. We've had a whole range of things that were set up, more than a little concerned that it looks like we've lost some momentum. Blumenauer emphasized that he took pride in the fact that during his time in the House, he found ways to establish productive relationships with Republican members, particularly for cannabis. It's not clear what we've got Republican partners now. On key GOP champions of reform, such as Cannabis Caucus co-chair, Representative Dave Joyce, a Republican from Ohio. He added that he's, quote, working hard to continue to be everybody's friend on this issue and to be a resource. He's had some conversations with members about the issue since leaving Capitol Hill, but he's actively debating whether or not to go back on kind of a cannabis tour, re-stimulate the momentum he helped build. Part of the calculus is considering whether engaging on marijuana reform at this point is, quote, timely. This is very much in flux, Blumenauer said. He also said that President Donald Trump is at least semi-rational when it comes to political considerations, and so advocating for marijuana reform ought to be something where he could claim victory if he moved forward with it. In general, however, the former congressman said that the administration doesn't have a vision of where it gets now, and I don't think it's a priority of anybody that I've encountered in the administration for their political firmament. Oh, I think it is very much a work in progress. They need to have somebody take control and move. I don't see any evidence of that, he said. I don't see where it is. It's not a priority for anybody at this time when it's so crazy. Blumenauer also said, pains me that after so much hard work and real progress, we appear to be in a state of limbo. Ultimately, we will get there. It just shouldn't be this hard, he added. Now, however, the cannabis reform movement on Congress appears stalled. As an example of that, the Cannabis Caucus is yet to have a single meeting this legislative session. Spokesperson for one of the Democratic co-chair of the caucus, Representative Dina Titus, a Democrat from the great state of Nevada, did clarify to Marijuana Moment that while the group itself hasn't met, efforts for the bipartisan lawmakers have been in touch. They expect to have a formal meeting of the caucus after a key budget bill that has been occupying much of Congress's time recently is processed. Meanwhile, Joyce recently reintroduced a bill titled the Strengthening the 10th Amendment Through Entrusting States 2.0 Act, which would end federal marijuana prohibition in states have it legalized while providing for basic federal regulatory framework for cannabis products. At the administrative level, there's increased pressure for President Trump to independently act on reform, including a call for rescheduling and banking access from top athletes and celebrities. This is Mike Tyson, which we covered right here on High at 9 News, are imploring the president to go further than his predecessor, former President Joe Biden. Trump's first pick for attorney general and alleged child rapist, former Representative Matt Gaetz recently reiterated his own support for rescheduling cannabis, suggesting in an interview with a Florida Republican lawmaker that the GOP could win more of the youth vote by embracing marijuana reform. On marijuana rescheduling, the president did endorse the policy change on the campaign trail, but like the Epstein list and the We Won't Touch Medicaid, he lied about a lot of things on the campaign trail and has been publicly silent on the issue since taking office. That said last month that Trump's endorsement of the Schedule III reclassification is essentially an attempt to shore up support among young voters rather than a sincere reflection of his personal views about cannabis. I'm Todd Denkin with High at 9 News, and what do you guys think? Is your boy Trump gonna make a move? Or
First of all, I don't understand why Earl is putting this statement out. I feel like he got duped into doing this by Kyle. And in all reality, he's like, hey, we need to put a piece together to push back on Trump, to tell him that he's not doing anything and da 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 da. And so I imagine that's why this piece is coming out. That's my personal guess. Earl is a champion for cannabis, and I don't want to take away anything from him or his legacy or anything like that, because Earl has been a champion for us. He's a good friend of mine. He's one of the Democrats that I have worked with for a number of years on this policy. But he knows as well as anybody else that nothing is happening in cannabis reform and policy during these first 6 months, first 8 months, first 9 months, any of that. There are way too many bigger problems that are plaguing America that have to be dealt with immediately. That supersede cannabis. If you look at any poll that comes out, marijuana ranks as far as importance, maybe 7th, 8th at the highest in any poll as far as issues that the federal government needs to deal with. There's a whole host of things that take precedent over this, and so this is just a big old gaslighting.
All right, but let's but for a second. We all know that the president sets their agenda and starts to execute on that in the first 100 days in office because of how long things take to get done. We know that this president is in office for a second time. We know that most of his policy positions were pre-baked, pre-digested, and handed to him before he was ever sworn in January. When we look at Project 2025,
that's not his. That's fake news.
Oh, stop!
That's true.
Stop! I've got the mic. And so when we look at the things that he is enacting, we know darn well that he didn't decide on January 22nd, oh, gee, what am I going to do with this presidency? And so if it was a priority, we wouldn't be waiting because of Iran or because of Gaza or because of this or because of that, because it would already be baked into what's important for this administration. I think we need to stop pretending that there's any plausibility to the pipe dream that the Trump administration is going to do something business-centric or patient-centric on a federal level when it comes to cannabis.
I totally disagree with this. I'm going to paint a whole nother picture for you, Yarrow, okay? Because in the previous administration, the Democrats controlled the House, and they controlled the Senate, and they controlled Biden. And they could have pushed something through if they really wanted to get something done, but instead you wanted to have people like Cory Booker and whatnot grandstand and say, oh, you know what, if there's not a social equity component, da-da-da-da, when Trump is actually the most pro-cannabis president that we've ever had within our lifetime. He signed the Farm Bill. He called for the passage of safe banking when he was the president. He said get the bill to my desk. He voted yes on adult use cannabis in the state of Florida. This is the most pro-cannabis president that we have had in our entire lifetime.
It is true that Botrytis Biden did nothing but create administrative blood rot and didn't do anything that I can really point to that supported meaningful change and reform. And I wouldn't want to contrast these two do-nothing presidents when it comes to their track record on cannabis policy. I don't think Trump is going to do a lot. I think that his first administration, those who supported him, were glamored into thinking that he was such a maverick that he might do something. I don't see it happening this time around.
I mean, maybe we just need to clear your contact lenses. Probably, Yarrow, is this something, you know what I'm saying? Maybe all the foliage in the Shire is, you know what I'm saying, clouding your view.
The only thing more orange in his spray tan is the red hairs on the sativa that's going to get smoked later this week. Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, and at the same time too, you know, he has already said that safe banking. He does want safe banking to get done, and I've spoken with the Republican lead in the Senate on this, Senator Bernie Moreno, on this, and he said that it is on the table to get done this legislative session, and so we're gonna wait and see, and so, you know, I'm gonna remain hopefully optimistic, and you know what I mean. I know that there is efforts that are being put in place to make sure that these things are successful and get across the finish line.
Safe banking needs a legislative ED medicine because it has been the flaccid topic of conversation for so many years. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time somebody started hooraying and hoorahing about it being on the precipice of being passed, I don't think there's anything safe about it anymore. It's unsafe for us to continue to think that it's almost there.
Oh, that's why they call it. That's why they call it safer banking now. Michael, you have any thoughts? I think you're on mute, buddy. There we go.
The bottom line for me is I think we have to realize both of these parties have been playing with our emotions regarding this issue for a long time. The absurdity with Trump at this point, I think it should be a priority, because you know what? It fixes a lot of things. It creates an entirely new economic revenue from our system. Forget the tariffs, forget all this stuff. This is a born in America, grown in America crop that we can easily exponentially increase revenue, create a federal tax, hopefully a small one, 3 to 5% or something of that nature, and limit taxes throughout the state so that there's a reasonable cannabis market throughout the country. We would reduce law enforcement. We could just save so much money on this and put it to different sorts of things that it's just absurd that this isn't a priority, considering how many states it's legal in, how medical it is in so many states. And it's just got to stop. It's absurdity. It's a human rights violation, and we should start making money off of this instead of complaining about all the issues and these candidates fighting and saying they're going to do something. At the end of the day, all of them are sitting with their thumb up their ass saying, haha, we got the money from both sides of the cannabis industry to run our campaign and still did nothing and got away with it because we just get to blame the other party.
Exactly.
You know, and I have a real problem with this because they're using us as pawns and as prisoners in their political fight to create profits for themselves. The pharmaceutical companies and police departments and the DEA lobbying for fighting against cannabis. It's a scam at this point against the American people, and it's a travesty of justice, and it's a human rights violation.
Well said, Michael. Well said. Well said. You have any final comments you want to throw in on that, Todd?
Yeah, you know, I think it's going to be just more and more and more of the same. And as much as I hate to say these words out of my mouth, I agree with the alleged rapist Matt Getz that this was just said to try to get the younger vote. And I'm surprised, actually, that, you know, he doesn't do it. I'm surprised he just doesn't. He did 3,000 executive orders. Why didn't he legalize?
Because he can't legalize cannabis through an executive order. That's not within the purview.
He can't do a lot of things through executive orders.
That's not in the purview. That's not in the purview of an executive order. That's not how it works. Everything he's doing by executive order is 100% legit.
Oh, dude, does he? He never makes a mistake ever, right? In your eyes?
I mean, he has made some mistakes, and I call him out on that. I do call him out on that. That's true.
That.
Well, I mean, you need to make sure that you're watching every day, because there is times that I have done that I've said that he's in the wrong. That's just is what it is.
Okay,
that's okay. It's all right. You know, one day you'll catch one of those episodes when I do that, and you know what I mean.
I don't think so, but
I guess
okay.
what branch of the government is the DEA under? That's the question, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Branch.
Well, I mean, they're under the Justice Department,
right? Which is under the executive branch, right?
Okay. What I don't understand what you're getting at.
Because the DEA is the ones with the hands in their pot that are holding on and creating all this corruption around the rescheduling process.
Yeah, but no one wants the rescheduling. No one wants the rescheduling. Rescheduling is a sham. Yeah, it needs to be descheduled. There needs to be. We need to pass the States Reform Act with Nancy Mace, and that's really what it boils down to. That's the best bill that's floating around out there in Congress right now, and it needs to get more momentum around it. And the industry needs to stop in looking in such awe about this whole rescheduling bullshit, and really gather and coalesce around the States Reform Act, because that will deschedule and give us a low excise tax overall from the federal government side.
I feel like Trump, as head of the executive branch, should be able to tell the DEA to deschedule it immediately and have that power to do so.
100%.
Absolutely.
He doesn't have that power.
100%.
I don't. Why?
He doesn't. That's because the who actually does have that power though is RFK. RFK has that power, but Trump doesn't have that power to do that.
I don't understand that. He can write an executive order over any administrative agency
that's not how
require them to do something.
That's not how it works. And I'd have to pull up the whole thing to explain this all to you. But I know for a fact that Trump does not have the power to deschedule cannabis through an executive order. That's not a reality.
Can I read my article?
Yeah, and on that, we're going to go into our final commercial, and we're going to be right back so Yarrow can read his article.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where do I even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Yes, and we are back. And I do want to remind everyone to go to aimhighhemp.com to be able to submit if they want to help in this Texas effort help out the flood victims. They are doing a drive of supplies and funds and whatnot to help out the victims. And so anything that you guys can do would very much be appreciated. And on that, we're going to roll right into Mr. Yarrow Kubrin. He's the man from the Shire who is taller than a lily pad, but shorter than the trees that surround him. He does cannabis, he does real estate, and sometimes he does judging of cannabis and judging of real estate all at the same time. It is none other than Mr. Yarrow Kubrin.
Thank you. Good morning, High 9 News viewers. Here Tuesday, July 8th. For those of you in California, I hope to see you at the California State Fair this weekend. Cannabis Awards ceremony promises to be the place to be. My article today is from North Carolina and is about hemp. So without further ado, from the North Carolina healthnews.org, lawmakers wrestle on with how to regulate North Carolina hemp. So in early July of 2025, North Carolina's legislature and Governor Josh Stein are grappling with a rapidly growing, largely unregulated market for hemp-derived THC products, such as gummies, vapes, and beverages, often called the Wild West because there are no age limits, no labeling requirements, and no oversight. These can contain psychoactive THC, creating concerns about youth access and public health. On June 4th, 2025, Governor Stein issued an executive order creating a 24-member state advisory council on cannabis. We know those happen quick and are very efficient. comprising legislators, law enforcement, medical and agricultural professionals, and Cherokee tribal representatives. Good on them for including the indigenous. Purpose was to study regulation frameworks and recommend a comprehensive approach to cannabis and hemp-derived products in North Carolina. They're tasked with producing a preliminary report next year and a final policy proposal by the end of next year. Yeah, so quick, so quick. The council will consider a range of regulatory elements, legal age and ID requirements, prevent youth access, clear labeling and packaging restrictions, especially to avoid child-appealing design, standards for potency, flavor, and product purity, public education campaigns and youth prevention treatment programs, law enforcement tools to curb impaired driving, surveillance of health impacts and possible medical cannabis applications, and expungement of past low-level marijuana possession convictions. Framework for governance, taxation, and revenue allocation, potentially funding addiction treatment, mental health, and drug driving enforcement. Everything that's already been done in so many other states and markets. I don't hear anything new on their agenda, but they're going to wait to have this done until December of 2026. Governor Stein supports legalizing adult use cannabis with a strong regulatory framework to protect kids and ensure public health. Senate Leader Phil Berger and other legislators are backing bills targeting psychoactive hemp products like Delta 8, Delta 9 toxins by partisan support. And the House Rules Chairman John Bell, who heads a hemp products company, sits in a central position. He could shape or stall proposed bills, raising ethical scrutiny over overlap between his business and legislative roles. Why it matters and what's next. This initiative marks North Carolina's most concerted effort yet to address the unregulated THC market, with Maryland, D.C., and 23 other states having legalized recreational cannabis and 39 states allowing medical use. North Carolina is playing catch-up. And not playing quick catch-up if they're only going to get their recommendation from their panel in December of 2026, meaning it would be most likely the end of 2027 before they implemented any of their suggestions. I'm sorry, but that is pretty funny. 2027. Call me in 2027, North Carolina. We'll see how you're doing. The council's forthcoming recommendations could reshape not only hemp regulation, but also trigger momentum towards broader cannabis policy reform, falling under increasing public health and legislative scrutiny. Closing summary. The problem: unregulated hemp-derived THC products pose health and youth access risk. The solution in motion, according to them, is a bipartisan advisory committee that is charged with framing regulation and moving incredibly slow. Timeline: reports are due March of 2026 and December of 2026. And the potential outcomes: age restriction, labeling standards, government oversight, expungement of convictions, and a regulated adult cannabis market. None of which have not already been done elsewhere. Some with great success, some with great failures, all of which is sitting there ready to be learned from and wouldn't take until the end of next year to be written up. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 90.
Man, it's Yarrow. I love how they are just kicking the can. We need to hit the transition. I love how they are just kicking the can down the road, you guys. This is good. This is good news. They want to
attempt to look like they're doing something.
Yeah. It's like, and this is great. It stabilizes the market for a while. It helps people get more market share. This is good news, and then allows them to see what is going to happen within other markets. See if there's going to be some type of updated farm bill. This is great. This is fantastic news.
Terrible news.
This is great.
An oil spill, and there were a bunch of ducks covered in oil, and you founded a blue ribbon committee to study what to do with ducks that had oil in their wings. You
get Dawn. You wash them with Dawn.
Making recommendations. All the ducks should be dead.
You wash them with Dawn.
This is glacial nothingness out of a state that could really use some leadership. These committees. I mean, what did Newsom do in California with the blue ribbon committee? I mean, this is what they do.
Well, that's because he had
a whole lot of optics and
he had a whole bunch of corrupt people on that. Mm-hmm.
I would say
Exactly.
if I
No
was gonna
pushback
form a
on that,
committee
huh?
And I was like, here's the qualifications for the committee. I was like, I need this done in 60 days, not in a year and a half.
No, they want to wait. They want to wait and see what happens. They want to see if there's going to be any changes to the Farm Bill. They want to see what some other states do and whatnot. And you know what I mean. I think this is great news, and it helps stabilize the industry overall. I'm ecstatic about this. This is great.
Too little, too late, not enough.
No way, bro. This is phenomenal. I can't understand why you're such a hater.
They get the report drafted in December of 2026. When do you think that stuff is actually going to be enacted?
Oh, hopefully the 30
2 years from now.
Hopefully the 33rd of February, Yarrow. You know, Mike, you have any thoughts on this?
You know, not much. It's the same old regulators, I think, just not knowing really what's going on. They don't know what they're dealing with. And so they're just like making excuses to exactly that, act like they're doing something, but really doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think this is great news. I can't believe you're being such a naysayer on this, Yarrow.
I like what National Disgrace said in the chat about how this is job security for those on the advisory committee. That the rate at which this is getting done is, or proposed that it's getting done, as if it might actually. I mean, some things get done later than what they initially said, but to get that report by December 2026, that is built-in ineptitude. That rate of change, that rate of recommendation, for me would be a non-starter if I was actually trying to change something.
I feel like this is a big weed for the people moment right here. This is great.
It's always weed for the people.
Yeah.
And hopefully I get to see, that crew up in Sacramento this year. It's always weed for the people. It's definitely weed for the people. And North Carolina, it's nothing for the nobody.
Oh, man. You're such a hater, Yarrow. Such a hater, but it's all right. We love you, buddy. We love you. But let me tell you something, man. I think this is a good story. But we'll see. We've been trying to end the show on a positive note, but I think this is. But I want you guys to be the judge overall. So, in the chat as I'm reading the story or after the end of the story, put a 1 if you think that this is a positive story, and put a 2 if you think it's a negative story. Okay. So, 2 Ohio Republicans talking on their own party to protect access to marijuana. I so wish Todd was here to hear this story. This would be so good for Todd to hear. 2 members of the Ohio House Republicans are leading the charge to protect access to marijuana, fighting back against their own party members who aim to restrict the drug. In November of 2023, 57% of Ohioans voted yes on issue 2, the legalization of adult use cannabis. But since then, many GOP legislators have been trying to change the law, angering citizens, dispensaries, Democrats, and even fellow Republicans. In a quote, thumbing our nose in the face of the voters, I think that should be a non-starter for a lot of people, said State Representative Tex Fisher, a Republican from Boardham, said. State Representative Jamie Callender, Republican from Concord, has been the resident marijuana expert in the House for decades, but recently Fisher has joined him as the other leading voice in preventing the state Senate's proposed changes to issue 2. In a quote, we're kind of the long and the short of the issue, Callender said, jokingly pointing out the height difference between him and Fisher. For the past several months, the House and Senate chambers have been trying to compromise on their separate bills. In short, the Senate's proposal decreases THC content, reduces home growing from 12 plants to 6, and imposes more criminal penalties and takes away tax money from local municipalities that have dispensaries. The House's latest version had none of those, and in June, Callender told me an agreement was reached on following most of the House's new version, which mainly focused on preventing children from accessing the drug. But as we reported, the Senate pulled out of that deal at the last minute. And once the senators said no deal, the chambers were left to figure out what to do to still pass legislation by the end of June. But it never got there, and the House GOP, made up of 65 members, couldn't reach a 50 yes votes. And in a quote, those who are leading the no have varied reasons why they're leaning no, from I don't want to vote for any bill that has the word cannabis in it, to it restricts too much and is against the will of the voters, or it's going to harm local businesses and the hemp sales calendar said. Fisher, the youngest lawmaker who just turned 29, has been able to navigate the hemp side of the argument with calendar dealt with the cannabis side. The Senate has also passed legislation that would completely remove hemp low-level THC products such as Delta 8 from being sold anywhere besides a licensed marijuana dispensary, and this would prevent the grocery stores, smoke shops, wellness facilities, convenience stores, and gas stations from selling the product. But Fisher argues that this is against the free market, and there are better ways to regulate the product without harming businesses or consumers who don't want to visit a dispensary or don't have one in their area. Delta 8 has become a major concern for Governor Mike DeWine, who conducted an undercover sting operation sending in teenagers to buy low-level marijuana from a convenience store. As of right now, hemp products do not have an age requirement, and both Callender and Fisher say there should be, and also testing requirements like cannabis, which has all been included in their legislation. In a quote, I don't want to pass a policy that only punishes the people in Ohio that are playing by the rules, that are embracing regulation, that want to be productive and be a part of the conversation, the Gen Z legislator said. The governor, on the other hand, says he just wants something done and has been asking legislators to move on this for years. In a quote, he says, how frustrated are you when it comes to marijuana? I asked the governor in late June. He says, I don't know if frustration is the right word. I am hopeful that the legislature will wrap this up and give us a bill that we can go on to other discussions, the governor said, smirking. This is the whole issue in regard to the implementation of what the people of the state of Ohio voted on. It's important, he says. Marijuana policy expert State Senator Steve Huffman, Republican from Trip City, hadn't been focusing on hemp while going through the negotiations process because he was under the impression that everything was fine with the Senate's proposal, he told me, and in a quote, we really haven't had much discussion on hemp in the last 6 months or 6 weeks, he said, adding that this is the number one priority to handle, and in a quote says, we felt it wasn't the issue we disagreed on. The Senate, though, even the last General Assembly, when current House Speaker Matt Huffman was the Senate president, was in lockstep with DeWine on restricting marijuana access and handling hemp. The more marijuana-friendly House members, led by Chandler, have been behind the stall, and in a quote, they say, I believe it's really important that we get this done by June 30th, and particularly hemp, so our young teenagers aren't going to convenience stores this summer and getting intoxicated, S. Huffman told me in late June, he says. Senate Finance Chair Jerry Carino, Republican from Kirtland, stated that the lack of action prevents municipalities from receiving their share of the revenue, and during the budget negotiations, lawmakers addressed a deficit in the initiated statute, one that inadvertently prevents any of the tax revenue from being returned to its designated fund. The law gives the 10% tax revenue from each marijuana sale to 4 different venues, 36% to Social Equity Fund to help people disproportionately impacted by marijuana-related laws, 36% to host cities, and ones that have dispensaries, 25% to the state's Mental Health and Addiction Services Department, and 3% to the state's Cannabis Control Department. Although the lawmakers could have expedited the distribution process by amending the law in the budget, they didn't. And in a quote, there will be distributions out to the local governments, to the host communities, until we deal with the entire marijuana bill, Chirino said. And cities would rather wait a few months to get their funding, Chandler said, rather than have the Senate remove it completely, which was in that chamber's proposal. In a quote, both of you are fine with the fact that we're going into summer recess and issue 2 is going to stay as is, I asked Chandler and Fisher. They say, I'm fine with that, but I think we need to do some implementation language, Chandler responded. But generally, I'm fine with taking another 6 months. I'd rather take 6 months and get it right than have something that is against the will of the voters, he says. The will of the voters is a perfectly acceptable situation, Fisher replied, and lawmakers will attempt to renegotiate this fall, you guys. Man, oh man, look at that. Another kick the can down the road for Ohio. This looks like maybe they're taking a page out of North Carolina's book, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I think it's a different, difficult issue for all of these, and they just really don't know how to deal with it. And so I think that's part of a reason why, there's too much complications between the two industries and fights.
Mm-hmm. Man, Yarrow, what do you got any thoughts on this? Are you on mute?
You're muted.
You're on mute, buddy.
So's my mind.
Okay. All right.
No major comments.
No major comments. I'm really excited that these guys are leading the charge, and they're saying, "Hey, it's about the will of the voters," and they're not trying to rush this thing. Like they want to get it right for their community in Ohio, and they're not trying to just pass something for the sake of passing something just to pacify the governor. I think that's fantastic news.
No, I do agree with that aspect of it. Try to get it right, but that's such a broad term.
It is a broad term. I mean, but they were trying to remove all the taxes that these cities were going to be receiving from having dispensaries when they opted into the program in the first place. And I feel like that's a very big betrayal, not just to the municipalities, but also to the voters in general that voted for this in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually like that model to incentivize cities, because I don't think ones that are banning it should get the benefit of the tax dollars generated from it.
Yeah, well, they weren't talking about giving it to those other cities. They were just going to keep it all in the state coffers and throw it in the general fund and just call it a day. And we all know where that's going to go to. That's like asset forfeiture of taxes.
If I was going to comment, I would just comment that, it's sad that these two Republicans are having to take on their own party to get this done. It's not lost on me that one of the two Republicans taking on their own party to get this done is the youngest Republican in that body. And so, it would be nice if it's progress, but it's progress where these two are cutting against the grain of a party that I don't think has been entirely consistent in supporting patients and the industry.
I think this kid is going to be on a great career path, government affairs wise. You know what I'm saying? Going against his party on this issue, I think he's going to be a bright rising star in the state of Ohio coming. Going forward in the coming years. This is definitely a guy to keep your eye on.
Yeah, he's only 29 years old.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He's going to be a rising star right there. That's for sure.
Or they'll just kneecap him like Liz Cheney if they don't like what he says.
Well, Liz Cheney is a rhino. She's not a real Republican anyway.
Yeah, because her dad was never the vice.
He was never. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's a warmonger. He's a warmonger, bro. You know it, and they are. That's what their whole family is all about. Well, and on that, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high at noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution and Tested, and please help out the victims of Texas with their hemp drive. The link to Aim High Hemp Distribution is in our bio, as well as Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media partners Elias and Kai somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.